In this section, we'll look into reading and writing to a state variable. As we discussed in one of our previous videos, state variables are the variables that are stored on the blockchain. So, to write or update a state variable, we actually need to send a transaction to the network. We create a transaction and send it to the network, which contains all of the details of changes that we want to make to the blockchain state. On the other hand, if we want to read the state of the blockchain, that means we want to read the value of a state variable, we can do it for free without sending any transaction. But if we want to write or update a state variable, we'll be sending a transaction which would cost us some gas fee. So in our example code here, we declare a public variable called num, which is also state variable. And then we have this function which can set the value of num to whatever value we want to set it to. And then we have this another function called get, which can fetch the value of num for us. So this function set, to run this function, we need to send a transaction to the Ethereum network that would cost us some gas fee, and we also need to send some value that we want to set num to. And this function get, we can call it just like that without costing us any fee. So let's check out this code on the Remix IDE. So we have our smart contract ready here, and we'll compile it and we'll deploy it. So we have the contract deployed here, and we have the state variable num, the function get, and the function set. So you'll also see one distinct thing. Wherever you are not sending a transaction, you have this button colored in orange. And wherever you don't need to send a transaction, you have the button colored as this blue. So if we want to read the value of num, the state variable, we can read it just like that. So this is one thing that you should keep in mind about the Remix ID, that the buttons that send a transaction to the network are colored in orange, and the buttons that don't send a transaction to the network are colored in blue. So if you want to set the value of num to something, let's say 40, we send a transaction, and this transaction then changes the value of num. So here we are reading the value of the state variable, and here we are using the get function to get the value of state variable. One more thing you should notice, that since we are sending a transaction, we are paying some kind of fee to the network even with deploying. So when you start the smart contract, you'll see that all of the addresses have the value of 100 ether, but now we have slightly less value. It is because some ether was used in deploying the smart contract, and some ether was used in calling the set function when we created that transaction and sent it to the Ethereum network. We use some ether. Like I'll show you again, we have these value of 45875 here. Let me send another transaction. I'll set the value to 90 now. So you can see that some ether was used when we sent that transaction, and that's how you can see how transactions require gas to be spent in order to execute it.